If you're just getting started on your programming journey, you're about to meet two of your best friends. Seriously, today we're going to break down two of the most fundamental tools that every single programmer uses, all day, every day: functions and arrays. Let's get right into it. Okay, so picture this. You're writing some of your first code, and you find yourself doing this. You need to do the same thing over and over. So what do? You copy and paste. I mean, it works, right? But just look at it. It's repetitive, it's kind of messy, and imagine you need to change that message from hello to goodbye. You'd have to track down and change every single line. And you're probably thinking to yourself, ugh, there has to be a better way, right? Oh yeah. And that feeling, that little question right there, that's the moment you start thinking like a real programmer. You start looking for a smarter, cleaner, more efficient way to get the job done.
This whole problem actually has a name. We call it the copy-paste nightmare. There's a core principle in programming called DRY, which stands for don't repeat yourself. And repeating your code isn't just ugly, it's a breeding ground for bugs, it's a massive time waster, and it makes your code an absolute headache to deal with later on.
So what's the elegant solution to this nightmare? Well, it's our first tool, the function. And honestly, the best way to think about a function is to think of it like a recipe. You write down the steps for how to do something specific, like baking a cake. Just one time, you give that recipe a name, and then whenever you want to bake that cake, you just say, hey, use this recipe.
So here's the key takeaway. A function is basically a self-contained, reusable chunk of code. You define it once, give it a name, and then you can call it, or run it, from anywhere else in your program as many times as you want without ever having to write those steps out again.
And breaking down a function is actually pretty simple. First up, you've got the return type. That's just what kind of answer the function spits out at the end. Is it a number? Is it text? Next is the function name, which is, well, it's the name of your recipe. Easy enough. And finally, you have the parameters. These are the ingredients your recipe needs to do its job.
Now, C++ gives you a couple of cool ways to organize these recipes. The first way is super straightforward. Just write out the entire function before you ever use it. The other way is to declare what's called a prototype. Think of it like putting the recipe name in a table of contents at the top of your cookbook, and then you can write the full recipe details later on. Both ways work just fine. That second one is really handy for bigger programs, though.
Okay, so our basic recipe is great, but what if you have a killer recipe for a chocolate cake, but now you want to make a vanilla cake? The steps are almost identical. You don't want to write a whole new recipe from scratch, right? You want to make your existing recipe smarter. Let's think about a real coding example. Say you need a function that squares a number. Simple. But what happens when you need to square a whole number, an integer, like 7, but you also need to square a decimal, a float, like 7.5? These are different types of data. Do you really have to make two totally different functions, like square whole number and square decimal number? No way. And this is where things get really powerful. This is a concept called function overloading. Check this out. We have two functions, and they're both named square. The only difference is the ingredient they take. One takes a whole number, an int, and the other one takes a decimal, a float. Same name, different ingredients. This is a game changer for keeping your code clean.
So you might be wondering, how on earth does the computer not get confused? Well, it's smarter than you think. When you call that square function, the compiler literally just looks at the ingredient you give it. If you hand it a whole number, boom, it uses the integer version. If you hand it a decimal, it grabs the float version. It's an automatic matchmaker.
All right, tool number one is in the bag. We know how to organize our actions with functions. But what about organizing our stuff, our data? What happens when you're not just tracking one number, but dozens, or even hundreds? Welcome to the data juggling act. Let's say you need to keep track of the temperature for every day of the week. You could do this. Create a new variable for Monday, another for Tuesday, and so on. But this is the coding equivalent of trying to carry 7 raw eggs in your hands. It's clumsy, it's confusing, and you're just asking to make a mess.
And that brings us to our second powerhouse tool, the one that solves this mess beautifully, the array. If creating all those separate variables is like trying to carry loose eggs, then an array is the egg carton. It's one single, neat container designed to hold a whole collection of similar things together. And here it is. This is an array called weekly temp. See? Instead of 7 different names to remember, we have one name. And that one name holds all 7 of our temperatures in nice, ordered, numbered slots. It's clean, it's efficient, and it is so much easier to work with.
So if we want to get a little formal, an array is a structure that holds a collection of items.
But there are two really important rules. First, every single item in the carton has to be the same type. They all have to be numbers or all characters, etc. And second, they all live under one single variable name.
Okay, you get what an array is and why it's so awesome. So let's quickly cover the how. What are the absolute must-know rules for using your new data organizer?
Making one is simple. You just say the data type, give it a name, and tell it how many slots you need inside square brackets. To grab something out of it, you use its slot number, its index. And here it is, the single most important rule you need to burn into your brain. Indexing starts at 0. The first item is in slot 0, the second is in slot 1, and so on. Always 0.
Now, before we finish up, I have to give you a serious warning about using arrays in a language like C++. C++ is incredibly powerful and fast, and a big reason for that is that it trusts you, the programmer. It just assumes you know what you're doing.
And that trust leads to something dangerous. C++ does not check your boundaries. If your egg carton only has 5 slots, so indexes 0 through 4, and you try to grab an egg from slot number 10, C++ won't stop you. It'll just go wandering off into some random piece of computer memory. This won't give you a nice error message. No, it will cause your program to behave bizarrely, to crash, and it's a nightmare to debug. It is 100% your job to stay inside the lines.
So let's bring it all home with this one simple idea. Functions are the verbs of your code. They package up all your actions. And arrays are the nouns. They organize all your data. Once you really get how to use these two tools together, you're not just writing lines anymore, you're actually building programs. So you've got the toolkit. You have the recipe book for your actions and the organizer for your data. You now have the fundamental building blocks to create pretty much anything. So the only question left is, what are you going to build first?